Hi everyone, this week's Luke reading is chapter 20. Jesus has finally arrived in Jerusalem. He has been traveling with his disciples for 10 chapters straight, teaching them about the life-giving ways of God and embodying those teachings in his loving presence and actions. When he gets to Jerusalem, he immediately clashes with the religious, political, and economic leadership there. He drives out money changers in the temple, but it's not them who seek to kill him. It's the quote-unquote chief priests, the scribes, and the leaders of the people who do. Jesus' daily teaching in the temple during these final days of his life provoked the leadership to end him, because he was beginning to drive a wedge between them and the people. Jesus' teaching and activity here was threatening to their status and political and economic control. So the leadership tries several things to get Jesus gone and to weaken his support that the people give him. But Jesus maneuvers around their schemes masterfully by simply pointing to the truth. First, the leaders try to seek to delegitimize Jesus' authority by making Jesus justify his actions and teachings. Jesus will respond if they are willing to answer a question of his own. He knows the people believed that John the Baptist was a prophet and that his ministry seemed to point strongly to Jesus as the awaited Messiah. So he asks the leaders, was John's baptism of heaven or of human origin? The leaders find themselves stuck between a rock and a hard place. Affirming John would affirm Jesus, and rejecting John would draw further ire from the people, so they just leave. Later, the leaders tried trapping Jesus in a catch-22 to get him legally arrested as a rebel against Rome. They ask if the tribute should be paid to Rome. This was not a tax that would support local community functions. It was money that would support the luxury of Rome on the other side of the sea. So it's a tribute more than a tax. It's a tribute tax. If Jesus says no in support of a dominated people, he makes himself a rebel of Rome, to which Rome did not take lightly, and the Jesus problem would just swiftly be dealt with for the leaders. But if he says yes, he would lose support of the people for whom the tribute tax was an act and a symbol of their being a dominated group. So Jesus asks to see a denarius, and points out that it's Caesar's image on the coin, and often the coin would proclaim Caesar as son of divine Augustus. So when he says, give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, he may be implying that it's odd for the faithful Jewish leadership to utilize such blasphemous currency in the first place, and even carry it around with them. Whatever Jesus implies by the sentence, even if he's implying you should return Rome's currency and use it no longer, he's not technically in open rebellion against Rome, so the leaders can't arrest him. When he adds, give to God the things that are God's, that muddies the waters even more. Because what doesn't belong to God in the staunchly monotheistic Jewish faith of Jesus' culture? There was one God, and this God was the creator. Everything belonged to this God. The whole episode here is really a subversive moment from within a dominated people group who must often speak in coded, ambiguous language to say what needs to be said. The story is meant to tease our imaginations to reflect on what our ultimate commitments are in relation to our social, political, and economic contexts. It doesn't really have anything to do with establishing biblical support for the so-called separation of church and state. Leaders then try to make Jesus out to be a theological fool by pointing to how silly belief in resurrection is. Jesus shows them how they don't understand the power of God or the nature of the life to come, and that their own scriptures prove resurrection by calling God the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Since God is a God of the living and not of the dead, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob must be living. In these three confrontations and ways that the leaders try to trick and trap and end Jesus' responses all end with a mic drop. He outmaneuvers them all simply by being a person of truth and God and righteousness. Jesus also offers three challenges of his own. The parable of the talents is a story about God taking the vineyard away, not from Jews and giving it to Christians, which is a common misinterpretation. It's about the vineyard being taken from leaders and given to the people, like fishermen and women from Galilee. Jesus confronts them by making them rethink the concept of Messiah to be bigger than just a nationalistic reestablishment of the kingdom of David, and also just points out clearly and explicitly the greed and hypocrisy in the leadership. This is a culminating moment in the ministry of Jesus. Jesus' movement was a deeply spiritual, profoundly loving, openly welcoming, communal, nonviolent challenge to abusive social power dynamics of all kinds. His movement continues today in the power and love of His Spirit as we are reinvited every day to follow Him, committed to His path of nonviolent but always transformative love. Amen.